Good morning, Gomanna Dia Yev. May God bless you. Welcome to Radio Maria Ireland. Thank you for your company today. And a little couple of minutes late there, just meeting Bernie there downstairs. It's nice. It's lovely actually now to have visitors to the studio here. And there's always on little small windows of opportunity to meet and greet with people. But it's nice that since the restrictions have lifted, people are relaxing a little bit more and feeling very comfortable meeting and greeting and coming to visit the studio here and interact. And it's great to see the plethora of little things that are being organised all over the country as well in the coming months. Great to see. So you're very welcome to Radio Maria Ireland this Thursday morning, the 28th of April, the feast of Saint Louis Marie Grignon de Montfort. Of course, the wonderful... He would consider himself, I suppose, the compiler of the doctrine concerning the true devotion to Mary. He would certainly not consider himself the originator of these things, but he's certainly the one who preached and travelled the length and breadth of France as a missionary priest, seeking to bring people closer to Jesus through Mary and advocating, of course, the true devotion to Mary. Through his little treatise that he called it on true devotion to Mary. And it's very simple. It's not profoundly theological in this sort of academic sense, but it's a lovely work indeed that advocates returning to Jesus through Mary, just as God the Father brought Jesus to us through Mary as well. And he would see this as the doctrine either explicit or implicit of so many of the saints before him, and he sought to compile all of this and put it together and advocate it as a spiritual way, a spiritual path, a spiritual journey that we might undertake more concretely, let's say, or more specifically, and I suppose in a sense that we all are on the same journey, the same path. We are, because you see, this is where he would make his point or claim, if you like, that all graces come to us through Jesus Christ. He is the one mediator. So we're completely in agreement, even with our Protestant brothers and sisters who would accuse us Catholics of excess in relation to Our Lady and this devotion to Our Lady they would not have at all or even understand. So we would certainly be of one mind and one heart on that very central idea. Jesus is the one mediator of all grace. But we would hold Our Lady in such esteem, not as a divine person, certainly not as a human person, but the highest of all, the greatest of all human creatures, and indeed surpassing that of the angels. Why? Because the angelic greeting, hail full of grace, and that she is the chosen instrument of the Lord to bring Jesus to us. She is not angelic, she's still human, but because of her fiat and her yes and her openness to God's will completely, that she was conceived without sin, ever virgin, mother of God, occupies that sole place of where no one else can occupy, and is, as the poet has said, our tainted nature's solitary boast. She it is then, as God's instrument, whom we look to, like at the wedding feast of Cana, or the foot of the cross. She is the one intercessor. So we would understand our Blessed Lady then as mediatrix of all graces. This is something Frank Duff capitalized on. Again, it wasn't new for him, but he brought that teaching to a wider audience, I suppose, for a start through the Legion of Mary, but he brought it to a greater flowering, let's say. So what Frank Duff would be kind of the de Montfort of our day, in a sense, and lifting de Montfort's writing and in fleshing it, as it were, in incorporating it into a very practical, lived apostolicity, going to Jesus through Mary, and bringing Jesus to others through Mary. And Radio Maria here is simply on the same journey. I see it as the exact same Spirit at work, the Holy Spirit at work here too. And so you, as our dear listeners and friends, whether you give sort of credence to it or not, or whether you, what's the better word, advertence to it and make note of it, or consciously sort of recognize it, it's operative in the same way. And it's no surprise that the fruitfulness of this consecration, this true devotion, this coming to Jesus through Mary, is manifest in spades. I mean, I've seen it through the Legion of Mary. I mean, talk about the Acts of the Apostles and the miracles and the signs and wonders. I have seen it operating through the Legion of Mary in my many years in Legion work. And it's a hand in glove, it's a perfect fit that Radio Maria would move into the very same space. And there's no competition, there's no opposition, there's no sort of tension between the two. Rather, it's a sort of, again, another flower, or another branch from the very same tree and the vine, as it were, and another branch bearing great fruit. And anywhere the true devotion to Mary is in operation, extraordinary fruit follows. Not the kind of so much sort of epic, wild manifestations in sort of extraordinary things to see, but very much like Our Lady in the Gospels, is sort of a slow manifestation of extraordinary miraculousness. Is that so? We'll be celebrating our 7th birthday now in a couple of weeks' time, and our Mariathon, and really looking forward to it because it'll be full on for us. So it'll be starting Monday week, but we will be echoing for you the extraordinary blessings that have come through the radio here in the last 7 years of our life here, and for myself and Aidan certainly about 5 years. I think Shane's maybe with us 4 or 3 years. And just to see it organically take hold, take root, and even in the midst of storms and issues and problems and, like any family, struggles, yet Our Lady is somehow holding it together and allowing it to continue to bear fruit and to grow and to bring just amazing blessings. And why? Again, because this is de Montfort's idea of the true devotion to Mary, that it brings with it a certain assurance. It brings with it great profitability, spiritually speaking now. And wherever Jesus is, wherever Our Lady is, they will be closely allied. And the extraordinary blessings that accompany that by way of, again, fruitfulness of the work we undertake. And you only have to look to some of the great saints of our time, and of course, can't but not mention Frank Duff, Mother Teresa, St. John Paul II, Padre Pio, these giants of saints, Father Patrick Peyton, some of these just enormous apostles of our day, reaching millions of souls, and God's grace sort of flooding through their work and their ministry and their lives, not without great suffering, not without opposition, not without naysayers. That's an inevitable part of the world today. There will be the indifferent. There will be those who, again, like the Gospel, the Acts of the Apostles, the Sanhedrin, the high priest, just they want to put the whole lot of them to death. Like, let's get rid of this thing. This is competition. This is and not being open to the miraculous, not being open to the truth, not being open to the invitation to repentance. There will be those who will resist to the last. Yet the true devotion to Jesus through Mary, it allows us to accompany the Lord with his Blessed Mother. And my image for the radio here always, and it seems to prevail again with all great lovers of our Blessed Lady, it's she at the foot of the cross. She bears silent, gentle witness. And that encapsulates really her whole life's ministry with the Lord. That the passages that we know of Our Lady in sacred Scripture are no doubt expressed to St. Luke, particularly by her, and not with a view to shining a light on her particularly, or casting any kind of, putting her on a pedestal, or raising her up in any way. It's the narrative is always in sacred Scripture that she is leading us to Christ. It's never really about her. But and if it is about her, it's, well, my soul glorifies the Lord. So again, it's nothing about raising her up in any way, except that she leads us to her divine Son. And so the very same with all devotees of Our Blessed Lady and her works, such as Radio Maria, such as the Legion of Mary. Extraordinary, absolutely amazing fruitfulness, and yet in a very ordinary kind of way. And like I say, that's been my experience with the Legion of Mary. Ordinary people, for the most part. There are some members who are extraordinary in their, great sort of professors or doctors or people of great social standing, let's say, from time to time that you meet, lawyers and so on. And that always strikes me as quite extraordinary how Our Lady would pick such souls. But they would always be the meek and the humble, even though they have such great sort of social standing or professions in that. She seems to pick her troops that stand somehow in opposition to the world, or it just kind of doesn't make human sense, let's say. That's what I'm thinking. And with the ordinary people, for the most part, again, the humble, the simple, I don't mean that in any negative way or derogatory way, people that otherwise, the world wouldn't give much account of, I think is what I'm hinting at there. Like the widow's mite in the gospel, that sort of, Our Lady picks her team in that way, and it's not the A team so much, or the B team, or the C team, it's the D team, or some other team. And with the lowly, then, just as the Lord himself with her, achieves extraordinary things. Kind of simplicity of faith, a willingness to cooperate in God's grace. That's all that's needed. So not necessarily any great social qualifications or academic prowess or social standing for that matter. None of these things. In fact, these are the sort of people that won't be attracted by this anyway. So the true devotion to Mary draws people in, as it were, the simple souls, the ordinary folk, the ones with a faith that the world would find difficult to understand, So de Montfort knew what he was doing, and he himself was a bit of a kind of like the Curé of Ars. France is an amazing country for the saints it has generated over the years. St. Vincent de Paul, St. Louis Marillac, St. Catherine of Boré, St. Bernadette, St. Therese of Lisieux. France has a litany of these massive saints in the church. She's known as, the country is known as the daughter of the church. Is the eldest daughter, is it something like that? That France has been such a haven of incredible spirituality. And I'm touching on the ones that come to my mind immediately. Beautiful country to visit, actually, as well, from the point of view of the faith. And again, such a rich history. And in spite of the French Revolution, the Enlightenment, and all these things emanating from France, some of these philosophers who, didn't do the world too many favours in terms of faith, anyway. And yet, from France, extraordinary things. And France undergoing its own form of persecution. I see another priest was stabbed there recently. And they've had a number of attacks. They're trying to rebuild Notre Dame, of course, or renovate it again in time for what event is coming up soon. Is the Olympics, or there's something happening in front? That's gone from my head. Some big event anyway. They're hoping in Paris that Notre Dame will be. They think it unlikely now at this stage, but it'll be lovely to see that restored once more to its former glory. So, indeed, France, extraordinary faith there. So St. Louis Marie, he was ordained, it's very simple to remember his dates, he was ordained the year 1700 and he died the year 1716. And the amazing passage in his work, The True Devotion to Mary, where he foresaw, he writes in it, I foresee that raging beasts will seek with their teeth to tear apart this little work of mine, or at least to hide it in a coffer where it will remain undiscovered. And de Montfort said, well, no harm, what harm? Our Lady will see that this work will find its place in her own time. And I think it was about 136 years before it was rediscovered. So he died in 1716, and his manuscript, and he'd written copiously, there's quite a lot of his writings available. This particular manuscript was just hidden in an attic somewhere, and was rediscovered in 1830-something, maybe 32 or some around about that time, which brings it kind of quite close to modern times if you just do some of the, in terms of generational thinking. So if it is that it's in the 1830s, this is rediscovered. Second quick drink. Tie that in then to the phenomenon of the miraculous medal. 1830, when Our Lady appeared to St. Catherine Labouré in the Rue de Bac in Paris. Linked that with St. Vincent de Paul, of course, as well. Again, in and around. And then 1854, Lourdes and St. Bernadette. And so you have a sort of a Marian era coming to the fore through France. So the discovery of de Montfort's true devotion, the miraculous medal, which is again a huge story, an extraordinary story in its own right, and the phenomenon of Lourdes. Just extraordinary outpouring of heavenly grace through the maternal hands of Our Lady and through the country of France. Most extraordinary. And it took time, I'm sure, for de Montfort's writings to be assimilated. He wasn't canonized until 1947. So that's some years later. And it is maintained, and I would argue truth in it too, that what brought de Montfort to the altars, so to speak, in his writings and his teachings, was the fruitfulness of the Legion of Mary. Among other things, of course. St. Maximilian Kolbe, of course, likewise in his Militia Immaculata, which was in the 1920s and 30s, leading up to the Second World War. So these manifestations of this devotion to Our Lady, leading souls to the Lord, and just bearing this enormous fruitfulness, and the Legion of Mary certainly enjoyed tremendous, and still does enjoy tremendous fruitfulness in its labours on account of this consecration to Jesus through Mary. And you could argue, indeed, and very easily, the very same, Radio Maria indeed enjoying the very same fruitfulness of its labours all throughout the world, So most extraordinary and amazing blessing. So if it was in the 1800s, John Henry Newman, St. John Henry Newman, he died in 1889, I think is the year, and wearing a miraculous medal and his devotion to Our Lady would have been instrumental in his conversion. We were told actually yesterday in our visit to Maynooth that, is it Charles Russell? The Russell Library that we're visiting, he was one of the presidents of Maynooth in the very early years, was a strong influence on the conversion, a good friend of St. John Henry Newman. There's a lot of interaction between England and Ireland at that time. And some of the Catholic circles were obviously holding fast together in the face of persecution and opposition. And extraordinary that this influence, this academic influence, would reach across the water in that way. So we didn't get the chance. There's letters apparently they have on file between Newman and Russell. And that would be a study, I'm sure, of its own another day. But again, these extraordinary figures, Frank Duff, born then in 1889 and discovering the true devotion to Mary in his 20s, around the year 1917. And so the true devotion, in that, say, 90 years, had begun to take root as a way and a spirituality. St. Teresa of Lisieux, I think she died 1897. So you've got a lot of these great figures in and around this era and having a tremendous influence in their day, and this great flowering that takes place. And there's simply can there be any doubt or any hesitation when you stand back and look at it in perspective, the great Marian influence of our times. And you can date it, you can kind of turn the pages back to the 1830, let's say, as a turning point. You can go back to 1716 and de Montfort, and yet he said, this work would remain hidden. The devils would seek to obfuscate it, but that in its own time it would bear fruit. And is it ever, and has it ever, in most extraordinary ways. And if ever there was a Marian era of the Church, we surely are living in it today. We see the plethora of apparitions of Our Lady around the world. We see the tremendous devotion to her through art, through music, through liturgy, through shrines and places of pilgrimage. We see an extraordinary flowering of spirituality in relation to our Blessed Lady. And of late, Pope Francis nicely bringing St. Joseph into the picture as well. something that would have been, you know, there, but unheard of to that extent in previous generations. That there's, again, a new flowering of the life of the church and maturing of the life and devotion of the church. So de Montfort today, extraordinary saint, and indeed well worth obtaining. There's the de Montfort Fathers, in fact, found, of course, in his name, have compiled, I have the books, and I must confess to only barely dipping into them, of his extraordinary writings and his poetry and his insights, the kind of compendiums they've put together of the writings of St. Louis Marie de Montfort. So one of the days, please God, we'll get a de Montfort Father, we'll get somebody who's, again, an expert in these things to come on and chat and explore more of this with us. And isn't that interesting too, the number of religious orders and communities founded and flourishing on the strength of Our Lady, the SMMs, or the Society of Mary, or Marian Missionaries, the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, just again random top of the head names of communities of the Home of the Mother, I suppose. That who else would that be but Our Blessed Lady? And that these particular communities and associations, it seems indeed to tend to flourish as well, insofar as they remain faithful, of course, to Our Lady and close to our Divine Son. All these things certainly flourish. So here at Radio Maria, it's a lovely feast day, and a day to remind us indeed of Our Lady's great closeness to us here, her maternal influence upon us all, and I hope upon all of you as well as our dear listeners and friends, that you get a sense of, through our work and ministry, in a small way, we're not trying to glorify ourselves but glorify the Lord, but of a homely presence, a gentle presence of the voice of Our Lady and her Divine Son through our radio mission. And if we fail to do that, or fail to work towards that, then really we're failing in our mission in being faithful to her. And for all of those indeed devoted to Jesus through Mary, I wonder if you have your own little story to tell, that you've maybe seen the difference in your own life. You've felt it, you've experienced it, and you've seen that it's as if your own life has been marked out in some way. There's been a certain path that has been drawn for you. And it might just be in the ordinary circumstances of the life that's put before you. We don't look for the headlines. We're not looking for the great mountain peaks, as it were, of achievement or success as the world would understand it. Certainly not. But that in the light of our devotion to Our Lady, we can see as if our hands have been held and we've been guided in a certain way through on our journey. And certainly, you've heard me speak before, and I think some of you certainly remarked on the idea, I would never have seen myself here at a microphone in front of a camera at a radio station, ever. It's something I would have been an aversion to. And yet it's extraordinary. The last 5 years I can look back, and we can do a bit more of that during our Mariathon as well, and see that, this is Our Lady at hand saying, come on, I have a job for you to do. Here you are. Here's a radio station. Throw you in and do with this, and let my grace and fruitfulness accompany the work. Just be faithful. Get in there. Stay at the desk. Stick at the microphone. Go out. Meet the people. Do what you have to do. But here's a job for you. Kind of like any good mother in the home. She says, she loves all her children to bits, of course, and would do anything for them. But, if they're to reciprocate that love, right, here you are, got some jobs for you to do. And that was certainly the case in my house. Growing up with my own mother, there was always jobs to be done. If any of us was kind of idly, wandering around saying, Mom, I'm bored, well, she'd have 5 things that she'd put us to do straight away. That was a complaint we rarely made. We knew well that if we arrived, Mom, I'm bored, well, there's stuff to be done. She was always busy herself, of course, too. So such is the nature of Our Lady. When we put ourselves at her disposal, like that, true devotion to Jesus through Mary, she'll say, great, I love you to bits, got a great family for you to join. I have a place for you when the time comes. Now, here's work. Just roll up your sleeves. There's work to be done. And so, in the light of that then, all of you then, again, dear friends, watching here and listening in and listening back, to recognize that you have a Heavenly Mother who, like that indeed, has been chosen and set apart in a most extraordinary way in the plan of salvation, and that when you reciprocate and appreciate what she has done, as Frank Duff puts it, our debt to Mary, how much we owe our Blessed Lady in a way for standing in on our behalf with her Divine Son, and then we seek to honour her and come to know her and love her, and not altogether in a sentimental way. I mean, that's a good thing insofar as it's, sentiment is helpful, but rather in a kind of hands-on sort of way, a bit like your own mum at home. Sure, we have wonderful sentimental feelings towards our mum, but a sense of duty as well, and obligation. So like that, I just encourage you that now that you are indeed a listener and friend of Radio Maria, and we all day, every day, with our prayer and our fellowship with you, echoing her great love and the love of her dear Divine Son for you all. Okay, there's work to be done. There's a job to be done. Don't just sit there. Don't just sort of bask in all the nice things, which is good. We all need a bit of that, a bit of encouragement and support. But look, there's work to be done. Roll up the sleeves. How can I help? What can I do? And don't think of all the big things like I have to head off on the missions to some exotic place. Think rather of how it is that locally I can do something small in my family, with my neighbours, in my community or parish. Can I give some bit of help to Radio Maria to help them in their work? Feel very much a part of the mission here at Radio Maria. And that'll be our request during our Mariathon as well, to get you to appreciate that and understand it. So many of you do, and we're so blessed and we're delighted to have all the cooperation that we enjoy from so many, to again feel, what am I doing for Our Lady? Thomas Roach says that. I might get him to tell that story. He was told, I think he was visiting Eddie Stone's, and Eddie Stone said to him, well, what are you doing for Our Lady? And he kind of got a wake-up call. He said, yeah, what am I doing for Our Lady? And that's kind of brought him in our direction here to Radio Maria, and sure, he hasn't looked back since. So what are you doing for Our Lady is a great question to ask. Let's take a pause here. Tara's kindly doing for Our Lady at the mixing desk there, minding things, and has a little piece of music lined up, I'm sure. So I would love it if you could converse with us here, share with us here, and by all means, interact with us. Send a text, an email, a WhatsApp, all of these things. 089 467 2000, 089 467 2000, plus 353, of course, if you're in the north or outside of Ireland, drop the 0. And if you want to give a call on the landline here, Martina and Mary will certainly answer the phone. Not sure if we have any other volunteers today, but please do ring 01 4 123 456, 01 4 123 456. I can say it going up or going down so that you can remember it. Plus 353 14 123 456. So do ring here, and please do write to us as well if you wish. Indeed, St Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. Now, Aidan is a great man to remember birthdays, so the little piece of music we might dedicate to Sarah Moynihan, who will be getting married, of course, at the end of the year to Mario was the man's name, in Medjugorje. Amazing. And Aisling and Joe Barco, due to tie the knot towards the end of the year as well. Isn't it wonderful? Our former presenters here and those young people working with us are moving on with their vocations too. So we dedicate this to Sarah. Happy birthday indeed to her. And it's Aurora Lucis Rutilat. Aurora is gold, is it? Lucis is light. Rutilat, I have no idea what that means. We'll discover for you, hopefully. No, dawn reddens with light. She has it there for me. Dawn, Aurora, it'll be dawn, I suppose, yeah, the gold of dawn. Reddens, Rutilat, I suppose, yes, rouge. Lucis with light. The heavens resound with praise, exulting the world jubilates, and groaning hell shrieks. There's an interesting line for a piece of music. The choir of Clare College by John Rutters' piece of music. Graham Ross, I think, is conducting. So thanks very much, Tara. There's a new jingle in the playlist there on jingle shortcuts. It's with a legacy bequest that I did. Play that after the song.
It's to do with what?
It's a bequest or a legacy.
Oh, sure.
You'll see it there. It's on the list.
Perfect. I'll look for it. Thanks, Father.
Thanks, man.
I can't seem to find it, Father. Do you know what it's saved as?
Have you got the shortcut list of the funding jingles open in front of you there? You know the way it's like sheet numbers 5 or 6 or
Let me look really quick. Got it. Thank you.
Radio Maria is a tremendous gift from heaven, our Blessed Lady's instrument of prayer, of peace, and of the mercy of her divine Son to the world. Here in Ireland, we've been broadcasting for the last 7 years, and we know of the enormous blessings that our ministry has brought to many souls. We give thanks to Almighty God and to you, our dear benefactors and friends, for sharing with us your time, your talent, and especially your treasure. We would like to make this appeal to you to consider leaving a legacy, a bequest in your will to the benefit of Radio Maria. Do look first always to caring for your loved ones and those needs closest to you, but an investment here will assure that we can continue broadcasting to the generations to come. It will be treasure for you in heaven, and we assure you of a remembrance and place in our prayers that the Lord will reward you not only in this life, but in the life to come. May our Blessed Lady intercede for you. May her divine Son be with you in all your needs, and thank you from all of us here at Radio Maria Ireland for your graciousness and your kindness to this great work and ministry which seeks to preach the gospel to the ends of the earth.
Welcome back to Radio Maria Ireland. A little jingle put together there. And again, if it's something that, again, the Lord is calling you to, perhaps to help us in that way, I might suggest actually, if it is that you're making out a last will and testament, do put in to have some masses said for the repose of your soul too. I think that would be an important thing to do, and to stipulate the number and the amount that goes with them too would be important likewise. So that's one of those things to attend to. You might think that it's somewhere down the road, or put it on the long finger, or always one of those important little tasks to have prepared ahead of time. It's now a beautiful piece of music for you there now, and thanks, Tara, for selecting that for us there and sharing that with us too. So great. Liam was in touch there, just advertising the rosary at Tarmanbarry Grotto every evening for the month of May at 8:30. There'll be rosaries at the grottos. That'll be beginning on this Sunday, the 1st of May, praying in honour of our Blessed Lady, asking her to wrap her mantle of protection around Ireland and to bring peace to our troubled world. So thanks a million for that. Thanks, Liam, and good to see you yesterday visiting Maynooth. We had a lovely visit to Maynooth and the College Chapel and the Russell Library. Most extraordinary. Now, I just wanted to address a text from Philomena, and Tara might actually be able to help me out in this one too. And you may have seen it, Tara. She said she was listening to Radio Maria. She heard you speaking about the sad loss of your dog, who was 17 years. You tell me that's a lot of dog years to have a lovely animal at home. And she says she's reading a first draft of a booklet that a friend of hers has written about the death of two of his dogs. And she's wondering if she could address or help him with maybe some insights in relation to what we understand as Catholics, or our faith teaches us in relation to the gift of animals and the blessing of animals, and maybe offer him maybe one or two little insights she might put in, such as the question that the children will always ask in school: do pets go to heaven? You know. So it's a very interesting question. I know it's addressed in the Catechism too, and I think we spoke about it in U-Chat, didn't we, Tara? I think we did actually have a conversation.
We may have.
I think we did, yeah. And my understanding, I think Thomas Aquinas speaks a little bit about this too, about how animals and creatures, like plants, I suppose, they are living entities and they would have a natural soul, but it's only we as human beings and creatures have an immortal soul. I think that's the distinction, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm relying on Tara maybe to correct me a little bit on that one.
I've debated this this week with people.
Sure, yeah, sure.
And maybe not the best time for me to answer this question, just because
Sure.
I'm still
It's a bit sensitive.
a bit sensitive to it. But my understanding was always that the distinction was between rational souls and non-rational souls.
Okay.
So where I have taken up this debate this week is that, I mean, I guess ultimately we will never know until we reach heaven. But I personally have a hard time rectifying, God as a loving God, creating souls, rational or not, and then allowing them to just cease to exist.
Just perish, yes.
So I don't know. I can't say whether or not they're maybe in heaven experiencing, the beatific vision or whatever. Maybe you have to have a rational soul to be able to partake in that. But I would like to think they go somewhere that is within the care of God. Whether there is a limbo maybe that exists for pets, I don't know. But I personally very much think that all of their souls are in the care of God, and I think when God brings about the new earth, I think they will maybe go there.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree. I think the things that we love and cherish, and the great beauty of creation and the blessing of animals, certainly, that will be fulfilled and kind of glorified in the life to come.
Yes. I struggle too, because also without rationale, without free will, they can't sin.
You're correct.
So
correct.
I don't know. I struggle to. I struggle with the people who say that they just cease to exist or they don't go anywhere. I really have a hard time with that. So personally, I don't buy into that.
Okay. Good. And I think I would echo the very same sentiment as well. We perhaps are a little bit, we don't know is the answer. We're not certain. When we get there, we'll certainly find out. But I just love kind of that idea that the beauty of creation, the gift that God has given us in the life of creatures and plants, which are at our service too. We eat certain animals and plants likewise. but that will somehow be raised up into a newer life. I wonder if it's an interesting direction to go, that the plants that we consume or the animals that we consume are kind of brought to their fulfillment in giving life to us. Is there a sense in which, again, all creatures like that are brought into new life, into the life to come, in a way far beyond what we could express or imagine? I think that would be a direction to take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we shall not know until we arrive. So
yes, can't wait for that day.
Whoever gets there first, let us know.
I'm gonna see my dog again. I believe it.
With God's help, most certainly, and in a most beautiful and fulfilled way, I suppose. And we can certainly imagine that too.
Yes.
So very good. Thanks, Tara, for jumping in there. That was just a nice text from Philomena, just pursuing that line of thinking. Do share with us your thoughts as well, and perhaps indeed you've dwelt upon this, or you've come across the writings of the saints or some insights elsewhere. We'd be glad to hear from you on that topic too. We can come back to it again because our time has run out, unfortunately, as it does here on the radio. It's just 12 o'clock. So we'll pause for our bells and our Regina Celli and midday prayer.